Hey everybody, it's Party Lead here with another episode of Total Breakdown. This time we're going to watch an absolutely astonishing battle on the Isle of the Crimson Skull that lasts to the last 30 seconds, where Bretonnia, led by Xiphos, take on Eärendil the Sailor's Lizardmen. We begin, of course, with talk of composition and deployment and some interesting calls on the side of Bretonnia, bringing in some units that we don't often see, I think. We've got the Fey Enchantress in charge on Unicorn back. Up front in the air, we have a Paladin, and we also have the Green Knight, of course, on horseback. The Grail Relique in the middle over here is going to try and provide some morale support, and on the topic of morale support, the front line consists of 4 units of Peasant Mob. Right behind them on either flank, we have the Spearmen-at-Arms with shields, and in the center, we have a pair of Men-at-Arms with shields. To the back, you can see we've got a pair of Questing Knights here and over here, and we also have a pair of Grail Knights, one over here, and another one tucked away in the trees over here. The other side of the field, the Lizardmen have a much more compact layout, as you can see. In charge, none other than Lord Mazdamundi atop Zlok, and we have with him a Saurus Scar Veteran atop a Carnosaur to provide some support in the form of anti-large and armor-piercing. Up front, we have this line of 4 units of Saurus Warriors with shields, using their shields to stay protected from the typically inevitable range support of the Peasant Bowmen. And back here, you can see we've got 3 units of Skink Cohort with Javelins. We also have this unit of Temple Guards in the center, and a unit of Saurus Spears with shields on either flank. So a fair bit of anti-large capabilities. Of course, when you're up against Bretonnia, you can suspect a fair number of cavalry units. So let's take a look at how this all breaks down. You can see already the Paladin there moving forward to get some early aggression, perhaps get a little bit of scouting done as well, see if there's anything hidden. Of course, eating a couple of shots from these Skink Cohort with Javelins and then pulling back into safety. And here we're about to see a spell that we don't often see. Again, because of how random it is, we get the Ruination of Cities coming in and doing a fair bit of hurt to these Men-at-Arms with shields back here. To the Peasant Mob over here, they take an absolute beating, dropping to about 50% right away, and the last strand of the Ruination of Cities just kind of flubs a little bit. So again, not a spell we see very often because of just how unpredictable it is, but great placement over there right in the middle, almost guaranteed to hit at least one thing, and it is an ability, so it doesn't cost any winds of magic, and more or less immediately you can see the Peasant Mob over here already giving up on the fight. Now we get some aggression in response as well. The Questing Knights over here pushing forward, and over here as well, and you can see the front lines are about to meet the Peasant Mob, are charging right in, and they're going to take a terrible beating, of course, as the Saurus Warriors with shields push in, but of course they are just acting as fodder troops. They're trying to hold the enemy in place alongside some of these Men-at-Arms in the center so that the cavalry can come in from the flanks and do their duty. Over here, you can see to the right, we have a beautiful use of Banishment. Again, just trying to hold some of these Questing Knights in place, I think. A little bit mistimed, unfortunately, but instead it is just going to push into some of these Spearmen-at-Arms and do a fair bit of damage over there. You can see as well, we've got the Paladin pushing in for some rear charges, the Green Knight now pushing in towards Lord Mazdamundi, while back here we've got the Grail Knights able to charge after some of these Skink Cohort with Javelins, or of course, instead, push into the front lines to provide some support there instead. We've got this unit of Peasant Mob pushing in from the left flank, while in the center, again, you can see the Paladin diving in to Lord Mazdamundi, hoping to cause a fair bit of damage. Over here, you can see the Men-at-Arms are getting some support in the form of Earthblood, but Curse of the Midnight Wind goes down in this area as well, dropping their armor to 0 and significantly reducing their melee attack as well. In comes the Shield of the Old Ones as well, and that's a great call. The extra leadership is always nice, but the plus 44% magic resistance is great against the Green Knight. Of course, he does have armor-piercing damage, but it is also magical damage, so that is going to help significantly as he dives in with the Dolorous Blade, extra melee attack, extra weapon damage, extra armor-piercing damage as well. And over here, you can see we've got these Grail Knights pulling off to the side, again, hoping to get some nice rear charges or charges into these Skink Cohort. Over here, you can see a nice Lance formation over here pushing in towards these Skink Cohort, and the same thing over here, we've got the Lance formation as they charge in, get a beautiful amount of damage into the Skink Cohort, and again forcing them to flee, forcing all 3 of these units of Skink Cohorts to flee backwards as the front line is engaged in sort of full force over here. You can see some great airtime for those Skink Cohort. We have the other unit of Grail Knights here now pulling for a nice rear charge. Grail Knights are of course anti-large, so they want to take their chances. They dive into Lord Mazdamundi. In comes the Favor of the Fate just before the charge hits, getting the extra plus 44 melee attack. Beautiful timing over there. The Paladin, the Green Knight, and these Grail Knights now working away at Lord Mazdamundi atop Zlok. They're causing a lot of damage already. He's down to about 75% health. Back here, you can see we've got these Questing Knights getting the help of Regrowth as they charge back into the fray over here again, throwing back some of these Saurus Warriors with shields, hoping to provide some assistance to the Fey Enchantress, who was in a bit of a dangerous situation, while to the right flank over here, you can see the Spearmen-at-Arms are holding the line alongside the Peasant Mob, beating away at some of these Saurus Spears with shields. Unfortunately, with the Spears occupied up front over there, these Grail Knights are having an absolute field day despite these Saurus Spears back here. They're turning back around for another charge, while up front over here, you can see we've got the Net of a Mintok going down on the left flank, holding the Peasant Mob, the Spearmen-at-Arms, and perhaps more importantly, these Questing Knights in place, as the Saurus Scar Veteran atop that Carnosaur is able to dive in with its anti-large and armor-piercing capabilities and cause a lot of damage to these Questing Knights. So beautifully done there, great use of the net of a Mintok, and you can see Mazdamundi is in a terrible situation as over here, once again, we get another beautiful charge from these Grail Knights. It's hard to keep up with all these charges as they come crashing to the backs of these Source Warriors with shields, dropping their will to fight significantly, and in comes another use of Earthblood now, hoping to keep these guys alive for as long as possible, as off in the distance these Skin Cohort with their javelins firing away, hoping to cause some damage to these Spearmen at Arms with their shields. Again, checking in with Lord Mazdamundi, he's doing terribly, he's not in an ideal situation. In comes Cold-Blooded, and not the best spot to do that in. It is going to replenish his hit points, but it's going to reduce his melee defense and melee attack and his speed as he turns around and tries to get away. In come all of these cavalry units as well, hoping to clump in and get some more damage and support against Lord Mazdamundi, while this Saurus Scar Veteran hoping to turn around and dive into the Grail Reliquae, maybe cause some damage to the Paladin as well, who is at 50% health right now. So that Carnosaur is going to be extremely important with that Saurus Scar Veteran, obviously, providing some non-rampaging in that situation. Over here, you can see, meanwhile, that right flank is getting a lot of support from the Lizardmen, and these Peasant Mob and these Spearmen at Arms are doing a lot of work actually in holding all of those units. They're keeping them occupied. Well, over here you can see the Spearmen at Arms are now pushing in towards Lord Mazdamundi, hoping to cause a bit of damage themselves, but of course he is atop Zlok, so he is anti-infantry and armor piercing. Those Spearmen at Arms are going to have a terrible time, and over here again we've got more cavalry charges coming through, while all the way back here we have another use of the Ruination of Cities, causing a tremendous amount of hurt. Beautiful placement. You're going to see a moments ago box at the top left showing you the placement of that Ruination of Cities and just how much damage it's doing. Great timing, great thinking. Free up that right flank. That's 3 units wasting their time engaged against some peasants. Great use of peasants by the Bretonnians, of course, throwing their lives away to hold all of these vital units in that right flank. So beautiful response to that as well. In the center here, you can see the Paladin now very close to giving up. Earthblood comes in to try and keep him alive, but that Saurus Scar Veteran is causing so much damage. He is once again anti-large and armor piercing, and over here these Questing Knights aren't having a good time either. They need to pull back into safety. The Fey Enchantress has the right idea as she pulls back into safety, and over here you can see Zlok is actually doing quite well in taking care of these Spearmen at Arms, but in comes the Shield of the Old Ones once more, helping to fight against the Green Knight's magical damage. And the Saurus Scar Veteran, you can see, turns around, gives chase to this Paladin, and ultimately gets him to rout and die, ultimately. So beautiful work over there. Now the Saurus Scar Veteran maybe needs to pull away from some of these Spearmen, as the Peasant Mob here take a beautiful charge from Lord Mazdamundi, and I suppose more specifically Zlok, having an absolute field day. I'm sure he's enjoying that, throwing these peasants around and causing a lot of damage, not only just to health, but of course also to morale. And you can see very quickly around the field, the Bretonnians are in a terrible situation. Off in the distance over here, we have these Grail Knights that managed to chase off these Skink Cohort to a fair distance, but now they need to come back, and they're being hit by all those javelins. They're trying to get involved once more. The Grail Reliquae is very close to dying off as well. It is currently routing. We've got a lot of rampaging troops in the center over here, clumping in on the Green Knight. Down goes the Grail Reliquae. Over here as well, the Saurus Scar Veteran being chased down by the Grail Knights, but of course these Grail Knights are very close to death, so they're not going to have a very good time. You can see that Carnosaur, again, now having a field day as well, just trying to eliminate this cavalry unit of Bretonnia. And over here you can see we've got the Fey Enchantress in a tight spot as well, being hit by the net of a Mintok, allowing the Saurus Scar Veteran to close the gap again. Anti-large, armor piercing, going to do a lot of work on the Fey Enchantress there. Beautiful timing, beautiful thinking, drops her health to about 50%, drops her morale significantly as well. And over here you can see we've got the Questing Knights engaging against these King Cohort with javelins, again being held in place as all of these Lizardmen units are pushing in towards the leadership of Bretonnia. We got a nice rear charge from the Questing Knights over here, but there's only a handful of them left. I guess technically several of them left, literally just 7, as they are being taken care of by some of these Saurus Warriors, and of course the Temple Guard as well, who are also anti-large and armor piercing. So in comes the route for the Questing Knights, and over here you can see the Fey Enchantress has been terrified off, so she's trying to pull into safety, then turns around and charges back into the Saurus Scar Veteran, who of course enjoys that, no problem there. The Grail Knights push in anti-large as they are. They do get the favor of the Fey as well, trying to help against the Saurus Scar Veteran, dropping health and morale significantly, and in comes another banishment. Great use over here of banishment, hoping to take care of the Peasant Mob once and for all, and also cause a fair bit of damage to the Grail Knights, maybe pin them in place, allowing some of these spears to close the gap, maybe allowing the Temple Guard, who are all the way back there, to close the gap as well. The Temple Guard right now maybe uselessly engaged against some of these men-at-arms with shields. They're definitely better places for them to be. Unfortunately, the Grail Knights are able to turn around and get a nice charge into Lord Mazdamundi and Zlok. Again, they're anti-large, so they're going to do a fair bit of damage over there. They do get caught up by these Saurus Spears, though. Pull away and keep that chase on. Going after Lord Mazdamundi, the banishment ultimately does become a little useless despite taking care of that Peasant Mob. In comes the Shield of the Old Ones once more, allowing the Saurus Scar Veteran to stay involved in the central situation, as the Green Knight's magical capabilities is largely diminished by the Shield of the Old Ones. Lord Mazdamundi as well diving in, gets a nice charge in there, protected by the Shield of the Old Ones, trying to make sure, I think, not to get out of that protective range. And you can see over here the Green Knight now is starting to take some damage finally. He's very hard to kill, but it is starting to happen. You can see over here we've got the Skink Cohort about to eat another charge from the Grail Knights over here. Beautiful airtime once more, beautiful charging, beautiful micromanagement of these cavalry units from Bretonnia. But again, getting a nice overview shot of the battlefield. despite what the balance of power says, it's quite clear that the Lizardmen have quite the advantage. They have more troops, they have more individual units that allows them more flexibility, and the Fey Enchantress is very, very low on health, and she's not really a fighter, so she's going to be in a tough spot if she decides to dive in or gets attacked by the Sora Scar Veteran. Over here, though, you can see we've got a great use of Earthblood, just pulling her into the radius, popping Earthblood, and now pulling back into safety, trying to get some rear charges, perhaps a Green Knight as well, trying to get some work done against some of these spears to make sure that the cavalry does not have the toughest time later on. Lord Mazdamundi over here at 25% health as well, but of course atop Zlok, he will have some fun, at least against infantry, not that there's much left. There's this unit of men-at-arms with shields over here trying to close the gap, and the Green Knight is going to cause trouble for Lord Mazdamundi though, and of course if the Grail Knights get some nice charges going on to Lord Mazdamundi, he's in a fair bit of trouble as well. But you can see over here, we've got the Temple Guard pushing in against the Green Knight. We've got another charge coming in from these Grail Knights pushing into the Source Warriors with shields again, giving them some great air time, teaching these lizards how to fly, and they do get the assistance of the favor of the Fae. Again, that plus 44 to melee attack is absolutely huge. But if another Shield of the Old Ones goes down right now, it'll be an absolute waste. Again, the Grail Knights also cause magical damage, so great use of the Shield of the Old Ones so far in all situations, and Lord Mazdamundi, I think, trying to close the gap a little bit over here and maybe charge into the Grail Knights himself while they get a nice charge, turn around immediately more or less, and get a beautiful charge into these Source Spears with shields. They are rampaging right now, they're out of control, they were giving chase to the Fey Enchantress, she needs to be kept alive and safe, and now you can see immediately just pulling again off into the distance, trying to get into safety. Over here, we've got the Sora Scar Veteran trying to close the gap. Apotheosis comes in to help replenish hit points and keep that Sora Scar Veteran alive. A very important unit right now, given the leftover composition of the Bretonnian forces. We've got the Green Knight back here. We've got the Fey Enchantress, of course, on Unicorn back, and we have the Grail Knights that are cavalry. Over here, the Green Knight is taking a look at the backside of Zlok, hoping to get a nice charge into that beautiful booty over here, and then ultimately decides to pull away as the Source Warriors over here turn around, and they might be able to bog him down. We also have that Sora Scar Veteran coming in to get involved. So the Green Knight pulls off into safety, doesn't want to get involved there, and decides to regroup with the rest of these Bretonnian forces. We also have this unit of Spearmen at Arms with shields. A lot of these units are rallying, but they are in a terrible condition, of course, off in the distance as well. You can see these men at arms with shields. They're not going to really contribute much to the battle anymore. They will get very quickly shut down. In fact, they're wavering even just standing there off in the distance. So the more important units over here sort of clumping up, chasing after this King cohort right now, getting another beautiful charge from the cavalry there. The Grail Knights doing a decent amount of damage here. Terror coming in as well, of course, from the Green Knight, but the damage is just causing a sheer amount of morale reduction that ultimately causes the rout, and these guys are giving up on the fight. And good call over there, systematically trying to eliminate the Lizardmen units here, using their speed to their advantage, the Bretonnians over here, and you can see the Source Scar Veteran once again pulling back, I think, into safety, maybe hoping to take care of these men-at-arms with shields if possible, but ultimately pulling back as the Green Knight over here charges in to some of these Temple Guards, and again, a bit of a dangerous situation, but he is ethereal, so he should be okay. We do have some support coming in the form of Apotheosis, and we have Lord Mazdamundi trying to close the gap as well. I think mainly trying to focus in on the Fey Enchantress, who's using Arcane Conduit right now to replenish some of her magical capabilities, and over here as well, you can see the Grail Knights looking for an opportunity to charge in as the Green Knight decides to dive in against Lord Mazdamundi, causes a fair bit of damage. Counter charge comes in from Lord Mazdamundi as well, and in comes some of these Temple Guards again, hoping to bog him down and keep him busy, maybe keep him occupied. If we can get another Shield of the Old Ones right now, that would be absolutely beautiful in helping eliminate the Green Knight's capabilities, and in comes the Shield of the Old Ones, so again, wonderfully done. Sora Scar Veteran as well, looking for an opportunity to get involved, gets into this radius, gets that help of the Shield of the Old Ones, but unfortunately the Green Knight quite cleverly pulls back into safety, doesn't waste any time in the radius of the Shield of the Old Ones, and you can see back here we've got some more assistance coming in for these guys as they push in, they pile up, they sort of clump in, and they're trying to provide a united front and keep their morale up, because of course that's very important at this stage of the game. The Green Knight comes in for another charge into the Temple Guards, does a decent bit of damage. In comes the Carnosaur though, or rather the Sora Scar Veteran, but counter charges again from the Questing Knights as well. A very dangerous situation for them to dive into. Not only are there anti-large and armor-piercing Temple Guards, there is also the Carnosaur of the Sora Scar Veteran, so a very threatening situation for the Questing Knights to be in. You can see over here the Fey Enchantress kind of sees the situation for what it is and decides to pull back into safety, as over here we've got these glorious Spearmen at Arms trying to dive in and provide some assistance if possible, while off to the side over here again, these Grail Knights finding that isolated unit of Source Warriors and getting a beautiful charge, and now turning around and getting a nice rear charge as well. Again, just systematically trying to eliminate as many units as possible and pull back into safety, get another counter charge over here as well, get these routing units to perhaps shatter Beautiful work by Bretonnia, trying to ensure that one by one these Lizardmen units fall, shatter, give up on the fight. The Green Knight over here you can see is busy with the Sword Scar veteran, as well as Lord Mazdamundi. Sword Scar veteran uses Foe Seeker to get away and decides to pull back into safety, pops Vigor as well, of course, and Lord Mazdamundi in a terrible situation right now, very low on health, very low on morale. Apotheosis comes in to try and replenish some of those hit points, and the Green Knight now gets bogged down by these Saurus warriors. Unfortunately, the Green Knight is not able to keep that chase up, and of course, quite cleanly, Lord Mazdamundi is able to get away. Over here, you can see the Green Knights again looking for an opportunity to dive into something, to push into any unit that won't cause it any trouble. Over here, the Fey Enchantress again looking for a similar opportunity, able to dive into units herself if necessary, while you can see again that beautiful charge into spears, no less. The Grail Knights being quite courageous, I guess, in their defense of Bretonnia here, pushing through, trying to get out of there now, while over here the Fey Enchantress, you can see, dives into these King cohort, but unfortunately the Sword Scar veteran giving chase, so she does need to, you know, sort of decide on a different path there, pulls away into safety while Shield of the Old Ones once again being used here to keep the Green Knight at bay. He is now at 50% health, so great work over there, and he decides to dive in to the Sword Scar veteran again, just trying to eliminate this unit. Very low on health, the Sword Scar veteran, and he is anti-large and armor piercing, so if we can remove that from the field, that would be absolutely wonderful. The rear charge ultimately causes a lot of morale damage as well, but then the Green Knight decides to pull away as this massive clump closes in on him. You can see the Fey Enchantress regrouping now with the Grail Knights over here, who are able to pull away from these spears. They've taken a fair beating, but they have killed 325 Lizardmen individuals. A lot of them are skinks, but they all count as they are eliminating units. Again, piecemeal. Back here, you can see some of these King cohorts with their javelins willing to return to the fight. Again, a prime target, a prime opportunity for eliminating yet another unit, getting them to shatter, and you can see we've got the Fey Enchantress leading from the front here quite confidently, with the Grail Knights following right behind her, trying to eliminate this unit of Skin cohort with javelins, and already the Skin cohort decide to rout, but that is not good enough for Bretonnia, and again, great move there. A rout is not good enough. These guys need to shatter, hoping to get a nice rear charge. In comes the Fey Enchantress, popping some magic there, causing a touch of damage, but the Grail Knights might do the bulk of the work over here, alongside that Green Knight sort of trailing behind there. He's very tired, of course. He's trying to get some work, and he's been getting a lot of work done. 26 kills on him only, but that's because he's been focusing in on some large enemy units. Off to the distance over here, you can see, though, the Lizardmen just waiting, regrouping, getting themselves to replenish some vigor, I think, and then deciding to run forward. It would have been much better, in my opinion, to slowly amble forward, replenish some of those lost vigor, or some of that lost vigor, I should say, because some of these units, such as the Grail Knights, they don't get tired, so they're going to keep the advantage of not being tired throughout the entirety of this battle, and there is still a fair bit of it to go, despite how little the Bretonnians have left on the field. And again, you can see the Lizardmen being very cautious, regrouping, pushing forward very slowly. Off in the distance over here, again, we've got this shattered unit and this routing unit. Perhaps this routing unit needs to be made into a shatter, but we are very close to the edge of the battlefield, so just laying in wait in the woods here, watching for a little while, staying hidden, just making sure that these guys do ultimately give up on the battle completely and pull away, while the Fey Enchantress over here uses Arcane Conduit again, trying to keep magic available for the Bretonnians, as the Lizardmen very slowly closing into the trees over here. And the trees, in fact, would be a bit of an advantage for the Lizardmen, so the cavalry of Bretonnia need to make sure they don't get engaged in the trees, and you can see already we have some of these Grail Knights being spotted. They need to pull out and get involved, while off to the side here, the Fey Enchantress and the Green Knight hoping to maybe push in from the flanks if these guys get drawn into the engagements over here. So clever thinking over there, while off in the distance you can see these routing units are right at the edge of the field, so they're probably not cause for concern anymore, and you can see these guys are now turning around. They've seen these units coming in as well, so they're trying to get prepared for all of these potential charges, as over here these Grail Knights peel off to the side again, hoping for some rear charges, and again some peeling off to the sides. So beautiful work there. In comes a nice charge against these spears from these Grail Knights, and again immediately pushing right through, chasing after these Saurus spears. Again, just one after the other, trying to eliminate these units, while off to the side over here the Fey Enchantress and the Green Knight looking for that opportunity to dive in. And over here you can see the Grail Knights just pulling away into safety now. They've done a touch of damage to both of these units as Saurus spears, pulling into safety, hoping to replenish maybe some of their morale, maybe get their health back up. If the Fey Enchantress is able to get another Earthblood in there, it'll do a lot of work, but you can see they do get tempted by this unit of Saurus Warriors. They turn around, get a nice charge in there. In comes Favor of the Fey as well, throwing these guys around, doing a fair bit of hurt, and the Green Knight now turning around alongside the Fey Enchantress. In comes that Earthblood, in comes that magical support to keep these guys alive, as the Sword Scar veteran is very low on health. He needs to turn around and pull back into safety, but Zlak as well in trouble. Pops the Shield of the Old Ones. Great use once again, reducing the effectiveness of the Green Knight as well as these Grail Knights, so they pull away into safety. The Sword Scar veteran turns around, dives in, and destroys those Grail Knights, reduces their health significantly. Their morale is dropping as well, though they are coming out on top right now. These Sword Spears as well, giving up on the fight. They do get terrified off The Fey Enchantress keeping a safe distance while the Green Knight over here as well in a bit of a tight spot, but he is causing a fair bit of damage. He decides to turn around and again try to keep an incessant chase on Lord Mazdamundi. Gets a nice rear charge, again dropping health and morale. You can see the Sauruscar veteran now routing, giving up on the fight. Great job by these Grail Knights, able to scare that Sauruscar veteran off, and you can see the same for Lord Mazdamundi as well. Very low on health, very low on morale. Just 622 hit points left. He's very close to routing, but this giant clump of Lizardmen troops now focusing in on the Green Knight as the Fey Enchantress once more using Arcane Conduit and looking for an opportunity to dive in and get involved. Very little left from the Bretonnians, but you can see the balance of power is actually in their favor. However, a few good charges will turn that right around. You can't quite trust the balance of power, but in comes the Green Knight as well as the Fey Enchantress. Ultimately, the Green Knight sticks to the charge, gets a nice charge on Lord Mazdamundi, drops his health a little bit further, but Lord Mazdamundi again pulling back into safety, trying to stay alive, uses Apotheosis to bring some more hit points back. Great use there, and you can see once more the Green Knight has been completely surrounded, and the Fey Enchantress is looking for an opportunity to dive in, using Arcane Conduit to keep that magic alive. Off in the distance, we have some of these Grail Knights in the trees now. They need to pull back and get involved once more as the Green Knight is in a bit of a tight spot. He is fully surrounded. There are some Temple Guards in there as well, so he's taking a bit of a beating. He's not enjoying his current engagement. You can see these Saurus Spears have sort of disengaged, and they're maybe trying to chase after the Fey Enchantress over here, or create another angle of approach into the Fey Enchantress, but the Fey Enchantress decides to dive in and provide some support to the Green Knight over here. Terrifies a lot of these units, actually, the Green Knight, so that's helping the Green Knight, of course, but he's still not having the best of times as the Temple Guard over here are causing a fair bit of damage. He's now at 50% health, so a terrible situation for the Green Knight as his health is beginning to drop, and you can see these Grail Knights now willing to get involved once more while the Fey Enchantress decides to dive in on these Saurus Warriors, but in comes a rear charge from those Grail Knights as well. Ultimately, not the best charge they've done today, but that does cause enough morale damage to get these guys to waver. They're exhausted already. They're not enjoying the beating they're getting. In comes a shield of the old ones, though, keeping their leadership up and reducing that melee capability of the Green Knight. Again, that plus 44% magic resistance has played a key role throughout this battle in just diminishing the returns from that Green Knight. And you can see the Fey Enchantress as well as these Grail Knights over here just timing their charges, looking for their opportunities, pushing into the sides of these Saurus Spears. Again, in comes terror, in comes that morale damage from the side and flank charges. The Saurus Warriors, though, they pull right through, right behind, causing a fair bit of hurt to these Grail Knights. They do have the favor of the Fey active, though, that increases their melee attack significantly, so they're doing a fair bit of damage and then quickly deciding to pull back into safety alongside that Fey Enchantress. The Green Knight now using Dolores Blade to cause more damage, but at 25% health, very close to dropping off, very close to dying, and you can see Lord Mazdamundi's health bar actually has some red in it once more. He has over 1,000 hit points now. He's killed 126 Bretonnians, so he's actually doing a fair bit of work now and is doing decently enough. His morale is quite high as well, and the Fey Enchantress now being chased down, popping Arcane Conduit, trying to get away. The Grail Knights here have to sacrifice themselves a little bit. They dive into Lord Mazdamundi into the back of Zlot, causing a fair bit of damage to health and morale. The Green Knight now, look at that, just a sliver of health left. Very low on health, very close to dying for the day, but the Grail Knights are pushing in to try and provide some support alongside the Fey Enchantress. In comes another Earthblood, just trying to keep everything alive. The Green Knight, unfortunately, though, at his replenishment cap, very close to dying off. He has just 270 or so hit points left, but everything around him is starting to rout, so he might just make it through. Lord Mazdamundi, again, very low on health, sub 1,000 hit points left. The Green Knight just staying incessant with his attack and his chase of Lord Mazdamundi. We've got the Grail Knights in there as well. Again, they are also anti-large, so Lord Mazdamundi is in a terrible spot. Less than 600 hit points left. His morale is extremely low as well. He is wavering. The Fey Enchantress pulls back into safety. You can see those Grail Knights did ultimately fall. The Green Knight just barely hanging on to life over here. The Fey Enchantress needs to stay alive. The balance of power once more completely balanced, and there's still a lot to go in this battle. We've got the Green Knight getting another rear charge over here again, dropping Lord Mazdamundi's health to just 33 hit points as he peels away into safety. The Fey Enchantress and the Green Knight looking again for an opportunity to dive in somewhere, cause some routing, cause some shatters, cause a mass rout perhaps. The Green Knight turns around and gets a glorious charge into Lord Mazdamundi, but that beautifully timed shield of the old ones comes in to try and provide some magic resistance. Unfortunately, not enough. Lord Mazdamundi does fall because of a beautiful charge from the Green Knight. His charge bonus of 85 doing a lot to help his melee attack. Of course, that 400 weapon strength with the armor-piercing capabilities as well, just dropping Lord Mazdamundi and Zlok. And off in the distance here, you can see the Fey Enchantress as well getting a beautiful charge into some of these Saurus Warriors, getting them to waver and break as well. The Green Knight now pulling away into safety. No need to stay here where the shield of the old ones is active, but there's still a threat. You can see there's a fair number of Lizardmen units still on the field here, and they can turn around and they can cause a lot of damage to the Fey Enchantress and drop Bretonnian leadership, and that's exactly what they're trying over here. The Fey Enchantress dives in, though, and gets these guys to rout. The Temple Guard are trying to close the gap, but As they turn around, the Green Knight is able to push in despite his low health, uses the Favor of the Fae to get that extra plus 44 melee attack. Fae Enchantress comes in for a rear charge of her own as well into the Temple Guards, by far the most threatening units the Lizardmen have right now. In comes Terror, in comes the Wavering status. These guys are going to give up on the fight. There's the rout. Favor of the Fae has been extremely helpful for the Green Knight, the Grail Knights, for everybody throughout this battle. Mass routes across the battlefield. We've got this unit over here of Saurus Warriors still willing to fight, but the Green Knight and the Fae Enchantress decide to turn around and give chase into them. They ultimately shatter as well, and a beautifully deserved Pyrrhic victory for the Bretonnians. The Lizardmen tried everything in their power to deal with the Bretonnian situation, but they were simply unable to take care of the Green Knight quickly enough, and allowing the Fae Enchantress to get away a time or two helped seal the deal in the last act of the battle. The cavalry was the hero for Bretonnia, as one might predict, allowing them to win by systematically dismantling a disparate enemy army, but the Lizardmen certainly made them work for the victory. Great use of magic and abilities on both sides of the field, whether it's the ruination of cities early on, whether it's banishment, Favor of the Fae, Shield of the Old Ones, a great blend of skill here from very high tier players. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always nice to highlight such amazing battles from the community, even when they make me lose my voice while commentating. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the battlefield.